most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We sit on a placid island of ignorance amidst black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But some day the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein that we will either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. Happy Halloween, everyone! Well, sort of. I know I've kind of missed the boat with this one, but you're going to have to forgive me. That aside, welcome to the very first episode of Through Boggy Terrains board game show, where today we're going to be having a look at the H.P. Lovecraft-inspired Elder Sign dice game, which is part of the Arkham Horror series of games brought to us by Board Game Supremo's Fantasy Flight. Okay, so some of you may not know who H.P. Lovecraft is, and for those people, I will say he is one of the godfathers of horror writing, writing such stories as the Call of Cthulhu stories, which are a cult hit, and most of his stories tend to focus around people pursuing curiosities where they probably shouldn't be looking and following things that they shouldn't be following, which often leads to loss of sanity or worse. And a lot of his works have also been developed into films, mostly directed by Stuart Gordon, films such as From Beyond, Dagon and Reanimator. But his works have also inspired other films such as John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, and the GameCube game Eternal Darkness also has a very strong H.P. Lovecraft feel to it. Okay, so enough about that. Let's actually get onto the game itself. Okay, so you and 1 to 7 of your friends are searching the Miskatonic University Museum, where you determine that an Ancient One is on the verge of awakening, which is causing strange events within the museum. You must encounter these strange happenings cooperatively and solve them through dice rolls, gaining Elder Signs, all in the hope of sealing away the Ancient One once and for all, and avoiding a conflict that would surely end in failure. Okay, so on to presentation of the game, and the thing that will immediately strike you if you've played any of the other Arkham Horror games is that a lot of the artwork here is recycled. That's not to say that it's boring. The artwork is in fact creepy and dark and really sets the tone for the game. The tokens are all made of reinforced cardboard, but are durable enough and serve their purpose. Just be careful when you're punching them out of their sheet when you first get the game, as the tokens can tear and be ruined if you don't take care. You'll also notice that there is a clock in here to track the passage of time, which is a nice little aesthetic. However, sometimes it's easy to forget to forward the time when your turn is up. The dice are unique and provide a nice visual aspect to rolling your dice rather than referring to numbers on a sheet elsewhere, but I'll be detailing the dice mechanics shortly. The game box doesn't really provide you with separate compartments to organise your tokens. Honestly, the amount of tokens I always find in half of these games, it really tests my sanity. There are voices in my head always telling me to organise this stuff to make it easier. But anyway, as you can see, all of my tokens are in the same bag, but it isn't really a struggle to fit everything inside the box, and it's relatively easy to pack the game away once you're done without removing the cardboard inserts. So, now on to setting up the game, and when you start the setup, you place the clock and the entrance sheet at the very top of the playing area. The various tokens and cards will be built underneath here. Okay, the next step is to randomly draw an Ancient One for you to stop. You may all agree on one if you want, but each different Ancient One provides a different challenge. At this point, you can also have fun trying to pronounce how the hell you say their names. Right, there's Yog-Sothoth, Nyarlathotep, Azathoth, And finally, no, I think it'll be safer in my first video not to even attempt that. Then, of course, there's everyone's favourite Doombringer, Cthulhu. The most time-consuming element, basically that occurs during setup, is separating the tokens and placing them where they need to go. If you don't have a means of organising your tokens within the box, which I don't, you will find separating the tokens become a real chore as there are so many of them. Right, the monster tokens require being put in an opaque container which is not provided, so you will need a spare dice bag or a cup so that monsters can be drawn at random when needed. A deck of adventure cards are then shuffled and 6 of these cards are drawn and then dealt face up next to the adventure deck. These represent the strange events that you must solve on the course of your adventure, ranging from finding something in the basement or meddlesome rats in the pipes, all the way up to becoming a monster, or even adventure-ending encounters. Each of these cards come with flavour text to add to the whole experience and build further tension. There is also an Otherworld deck containing additional adventures that get revealed later on in the game. Okay, so now it's time to choose your character. Let's see who we have here. Bugsy Malone, the Wolf of Wall Street, Simcoe the Magician, Indiana Jones, and... ooh, hello. Yeah, not one episode in and I'm already doing compare the guys to other famous people jokes. The characters are actually all unique beyond having different limits of health and sanity. Each character has different starting equipment, and they also all have a unique ability. Some that benefit the individual, and some that benefit the entire group. Finally, you distribute the different starting equipment for each character, as well as their tokens. As you can see, you do not need a huge amount of play space, and the game can be played on a small table, but you do need to account for space to roll your dice. Okay, it's now time to place our character tokens at the entrance card, and then flip the first card of the Mythos deck. We're now ready to start our game. Now, the Mythos cards add conditions that affect the way the game is played. Each Mythos card has an immediate effect. Things like a monster appearing, or adding one Doom token to the Doom track, which are these. Look at them, they're so tiny. And they basically measure the amount of time before the Ancient One appears. Mythos cards then also have a lingering effect that either carries throughout the turn, or when the clock next strikes midnight. These can be things such as disabling certain cards, or even locking certain dice, removing them from play for a limited amount of time. A new Mythos card is drawn every time the clock strikes midnight, and the effects of the old cards stop. Now each turn is made up of 3 phases: the movement phase, the resolution phase, and the clock phase. So let's start with the movement phase, and it's pretty much as it sounds. The player moves his counter to the adventure card or Otherworld adventure card that they wish to interact with. Alternatively, they may wish to move back to the museum entrance, where they can either buy a souvenir using trophies that they've acquired, or you may search the lost and found by rolling a green die and matching the result against the chart and gain that item. In this case, you would gain a clue token. Finally, in the museum entrance, you may acquire first aid, where you can gain minor healing for no cost, or spend additional trophies that you've earned on the course of your adventure to get more advanced healing. If the player chooses not to move during the movement phase, that is also perfectly legal. So after we've moved, we move on to the resolution phase. If the player is at the entrance, then the player does one of the activities mentioned previously. But if the player is on an adventure card, then it's time to get your dice roll on. When looking at your adventure card, the first thing you'll want to look at is whether there is an arrow pointing downwards on the left-hand side. If it does, it means the adventure needs to complete its tasks in a certain order. Right, the tasks are these symbols here, and if there is no arrow, they may be completed in any order, otherwise they must be completed from top to bottom. Now it's time to roll your dice pool, and your dice pool consists of 6 green dice. You may also have some equipment cards, which allow you to gain some extra dice, such as this one, which allows you to get the red dice. There is also a yellow dice in there. Again, if you have a card, you can use those. You can have the full pool dice of 6 green dice, 1 yellow and 1 red. After rolling your dice, you may match your dice to complete any one task at a time. The dice are removed from your pool and placed on the completed task. In this case, I do have 4 of the clue rolls, which do match up to the top task up there, so that task will be considered complete. If you didn't manage to complete a task, in this case I do not have 4 clue rolls to be able to match up to the clue task at the top, you must remove 1 dice from play. Additionally, if a dice shows a terror symbol, you must satisfy any terror event shown on either the adventure card or the current mythos card, such as here. At the bottom, sorry, it's not in focus there. There we go. You then re-roll any dice you have left remaining until you either complete all the tasks or run out of dice. On failing the adventures, all tasks are reset and you take any health or sanity damage listed in the bottom left corner highlighted in red. You may also have to add a Doom token to the Doom track, which basically represents bringing the Ancient One closer to the living world. The game is incredibly tough and you could find yourself failing adventures an awful lot, especially early on in the game. However, saying that, it is a game against the clock and you really can't afford to stay at the museum entrance for too long to improve on your character. It's about using what equipment you do have wisely and taking calculated risks. Saying that, there are additional boons in the game to help you complete your tasks more efficiently. As well as having equipment and ally cards that allow you to do such things as use the better yellow and red dice or other such helpful tasks, there are also clue tokens. These basically allow you to re-roll a dice of your choice. You can also do things like secure a dice roll by using spells so you can save a symbol on a dice roll for a later task. A fellow player at the same location may also choose to secure a dice, which basically means that they can save the dice for a player when they fail a roll. Though, should that player that they're helping then fail the adventure, the player then must choose to take either 1 health or 1 sanity damage, adding an element of selective cooperation, building further tension to the game itself. But it seems that for every positive for the player there are 2 negatives. Certain mythos cards, monster tokens, and even adventure cards can lock dice, basically bringing them out of play. Even if you have equipment cards that allow you to use that die, they can only be unlocked when the token or card is removed from play. Monster tokens can also appear that take their place on adventure cards, either replacing tasks bordered in white, or appearing as an entirely separate task, making solving adventures that much harder. If you overcome all these problems, you complete the adventure, removing it from play and putting it in your play area. The green circle next to the adventure title represents the trophy score you gain, which can be spent to buy items or heal your character. Defeating monsters also earns you a trophy score. You then replace the adventure card, then resolve any additional rewards you gain by looking at the bottom right hand corner of the card. These can range from anything from clue tokens to equipment cards, or best of all, an elder sign. Elder signs basically are a way of tracking how close you are to sealing away the ancient one, so the more of those you can get, the better. If on the course of your adventure you are reduced to either 0 health or sanity, your character is removed from play and devoured. But don't despair, you may select a new character to play as and carry on your adventure. However, any items, clue tokens that you gained on the course of your adventure, you now lose and you pretty much have to start over. After the resolution phase is resolved, you move on to the clock phase. Advance the clock by 3 hours and then move play to the next player. If the clock strikes midnight, you have to resolve any at midnight effects, such as this one, and then you draw a new Mythos card, replacing the old one's effects. So you may be asking yourself, how do I keep track of when it's midday or midnight? Well, the instructions conveniently tell you that the investigators have everyday lives and must sleep. Meaning that it is always midnight when the clock strikes 12. You just have to assume that for 12 hours of the day, the investigators are doing something more important than saving the world. Play then continues this way until one of two scenarios are met. If you collect the required amount of elder signs, then the ancient one is sealed away and you win. But if the doom track reaches its limit, the ancient one awakens and you'll give one final but futile chance to win the game. You enter combat with the Elder God. You remove all Adventure and Mythos cards from play, removing their effects, but you also lose any dice from play that were locked on the Ancient One's awakening. Players then move their markers to the Ancient One card, and combat with the Ancient One begins. Much like the resolution phase, players roll their dice pool and match them to the task icons on the Ancient One, which can be shown just here. Removing dice each time you succeed and placing them on the task, or losing one dice for each failure until you can no longer complete the task. So in this case, I would remove one dice. For each time you complete the task, you remove one doom track from play. So in this case, I'd remove 2. The player then puts the clock forward 3 hours and then resumes to go home to sleep mid-battle whilst waiting for the clock to reach midnight so that the Ancient One can attack. If any investigator's sanity or health are reduced to 0 at this point in the game, they are removed from the game for good. Should the investigator succeed in reducing all the tokens on the doom track, then the Ancient One is defeated and you win. Yay! So, compared to other games in the series, such as the original Arkham Horror board game, Elder Sign is a much faster paced game that maintains a similar style of play, though much simplified. The various abilities that you get on the both the playable character cards and the Ancient One cards allow a lot of replay value to the game, and there are plenty of adventure cards here as well, ensuring that there's plenty of content. As mentioned before, the custom dice make for a nice fun aesthetic too. The game is incredibly tough, and some people may find it frustrating to the point that it hinders their enjoyment of the game. That said though, when everything just seems to be clicking as a team, your tactics seem justified and the dice are rolling your way, it can leave you feeling incredibly rewarded at the end of the game, and can leave you with some stories to tell. So, if you ever have a spare hour and are up for a challenge, this game comes highly recommended. That just about wraps it up for the first episode. So, I hope you guys...
Stephen!
Yeah? Who's that?
I am the unknown in your mind. I am everything that you don't know. And as your beloved H.P. Lovecraft wrote, you are venturing into that very uncertainty just like he wrote about.
By doing these reviews, it's not exactly the same thing as he was writing about.
Not everyone will agree with your views. Some people will hate you.
They're entitled to it. I know what to expect.
They will hound you. They will drive you to the very edge of sanity. And before long, you will find yourself giving in to the darkness, and you shall become one with our great Lord.
Are you wearing a Tekken 6 hoodie?
No. No. My cultist clothes are in the wash. I'm having a lazy day. Give me a break. In fact, I'm done. In truth, my confidence is a little shaken. I'm gonna go have a milkshake and take a nap.
Okay, well, let's hope that's the end of that. So, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Please feel free to comment on the bottom of the page.
That's a good milkshake. The Dark Lord can wait. I need my rest.